I didn't know who I was supposed to be. That's the truest thing I can say about being a child. I walked into first grade barely speaking. The assessment said shy, timid, poor vocabulary, and recommended a hobby to open me up. So they gave me a cello. I walked out of third grade with advanced vocabulary on my school report. Everyone called it progress, and I suppose it was, just not the way they thought. What actually happened is that I learned to perform. I learned that my unfiltered self, the one who used the word ablager because my grandma said it while showing me how to make plant cuttings and got accused by my teacher of making the word up, that version of me was the problem to be solved. So I solved her. I practiced eye contact, I rehearsed conversations, I learned when to smile and what not to say out loud. I stopped myself from disliking crowds, from flinching at loud sounds, from talking to myself when I was absorbed in something. I got so good at that years later. Looking back at my own school report, I added a personal note. Excellent acting skills. Nobody gave me that grade. I gave it to myself because I was the only one who knew what the performance had actually cost. My teacher had her own theory about it. She liked someone different, someone strange. She had her chosen ones. The 10 kids who got the warmth, and I wasn't the one of them. So I built my own grading system privately on the side since hers didn't seem to be evaluating the things that actually mattered. That's very specific kind of weird for a 7-year-old to be doing, running a shadow curriculum just to know if you're doing okay. You know that what a performance like that looks like from the outside, manageable, like an iceberg, looks fine above the water, and then, oops, turns out it's bigger than anyone thought. Nobody at the surface ever asks how much of the iceberg is working over time just to keep 3 inches visible. Here's now what it tells you about loneliness. You can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. I had friends. I went out, I invited people over, but by every standard, by every external measure, I was doing it right. And yet, there was a friend who would call me and talk for 1 or 2 hours about the details of his life. Those details were extremely boring. One call I particularly remember. He went to IKEA with his mum. He bought a tray. Then they went to C&A, where he bought a bag. At the end, they ate meatballs. That was the whole story. There was no punchline. That was 2 hours of my life. I kept picking up the phone for years, not because I enjoyed it, because it was boring. There was no story. I would prefer him saying that, I don't know, he went to IKEA and he met Batman. That would be truly more interesting. But because he needed me. You see, he's bipolar, and I felt needed by him. And being needed felt like belonging. If someone needs you, they won't leave after all. There was another friend who interrupted me watching Harry Potter with my cousin to ask if I wanted to get a burger with her because there was a special offer that day. And she was almost offended when I said that I wasn't available. And at that time, I had to promise her that I will go with her to that burger yet another day, on the other day. And then there was my co-founder, who did all of that just with higher stakes and better vocabulary. It started the way these things always start. He praised my intelligence, told me he believed in me more than anyone ever had, called me a genius. Her part felt like finally being seen. What I didn't notice, because you never notice it from the inside, was how quickly being seen turned out being managed. He excluded me from investor emails, decisions happened, and I found out afterwards nothing I did was ever quite good enough, and the bar moved every time I'd go close to it. He compared me more than once to another woman he worked with, in the exact tone he used to once praise me. And when I pushed back on anything, the story would rewrite itself in real time until I doubted my own memory of the conversation we just had. He also controlled what I could see. The cap table, the actual numbers, which invested conversations were happening, and which had already quietly closed without me. All of it sat with him, and I found out about decisions the way you find out about weather after it already rained on you in front of other people. He just praised me generously, warmly, the genius line again for an audience. In private, on the next call, the same hour sometimes, I got the opposite. Quiet, specific surgical correction of things I hadn't actually gotten wrong. I had named for all of it eventually. Love bombing, information hoarding, triangulation, gaslighting, financial control, the public place paired with the private demolition. But I didn't have the names while it was happening. Why it was happening, it just felt like my fault. That's the part nobody warns you about. Patton has a textbook. Living inside it does not come with footnotes. I was lonelier with him than I had ever been alone. What did all of those people have in common? They wanted something from me. And I, someone who had spent her whole life performing for acceptance, had stopped expecting it to be known. I was settling for being useful. For years, I thought I just hadn't found the right theory yet. I thought loneliness was depression. That's what it felt like in Porto when the man I fancied that particular moment kept rejecting me and I sat in my room missing butter, of all things. The specific stupid small things that don't matter until you're somewhere they don't exist. Then I thought loneliness was simply a friend. Deficiency. Solvable with the obvious advice. Go outside, talk to people, make some friends. Then I thought it was a hermit's condition. Something you fix quietly through self-development, on your own, no witness required. None of those theories got me anywhere, and because I didn't understand the actual problem, every product I tried to build around it kept failing. I was treating symptoms without knowing what the disease actually was. So eventually, I stopped theorizing and started listening. I ran real interviews. The mom asked about the problem, not your idea of the solution. And the same sentence kept coming back, worded slightly differently. Each time, I don't know where I fit anymore. Not I wish I had more friends. Not I'm sad I'm alone. Not I'm sad I'm alone. Something quieter and harder to fix. A missing sense of where they belong. One woman told me about her grandmother who used to host the entire extended family for Sunday lunch. Same table, same chairs, same arguments about the same things every week for decades. The woman lives for 4 flights and 2 flights and the long haul flights away from everyone now. She still video calls her mother every Sunday. She told me almost apologetically that it's not the same, and then immediately backtracked and said, of course it helps. She's grateful for it. Technology is wonderful. I believe both halves of that sentence. That's the whole problem in miniature. Gratitude and grief sharing the same breath. It makes sense once you say it out loud. Globalization scattered all of us. Your family, your original community, is probably scattered across a few time zones. You can't show up at your cousin's door anymore. You can video call and it helps, and it's also not remotely the same thing. The more warmth is there, the present isn't. So what's actually the opposite of loneliness? Not a crowd, belonging. Knowing who you are, knowing who your people are. And this is the part everyone skips. Being able to express yourself fully enough that even when your people aren't in the room, you still feel okay. Because you were not waiting for someone else to make you real. My body knew before I did. After my co-founder was finally legally gone, I'd felt something I hadn't expected. Relief, real relief. The kind that should have felt like the beginning of everything. And for a while it did. I slept better, I had real hope, I'd had dreams which I told him exactly where to go, calmly with my lawyer's name in my mouth. Then the headaches arrived that nearly took me off my feet. Left side of my skull, a pressure like something had been quietly accumulating there for years, and had finally hit capacity. Over the following days, it started to move, down through my arm like it was looking for an exit. And as it moved, old memories surfaced. Not all of them about him. Things I'd filed away. Every time a memory came up, the pain shifted, and for one strange moment, I'd feel kind of a relief. That phase lasted days. Then the headache came back, duller, the kind that wakes you up in 2 in the morning, and it stayed on the left side of for months. Then it moved to the right and changed entirely. Pressure became heat and actually burning. My eye blurring, my brow aching so much that walking at the computer became a genuine problem. My gut stopped cooperating around the same time. I couldn't eat much. A few times I threw up a meal right up after finishing it, like my body was refusing to complete the process. My balance got unreliable. I fell more than once. My face swelled, my lymphatic system overwhelmed, and I had to sleep on one side just to drain the fluid. I developed asthma attacks, bad enough that I had to sleep nearly sitting up. If you want the technical version, there's a theory called polyvagal theory and book called The Body Keeps the Score. And the short summary above is that your nervous system doesn't actually distinguish between I'm being chased by a bird and I am on a call with my co-founder again. It just registers threat, and threat gets stored somewhere, and if you don't process it on purpose, your body will process it for you on its own schedule, usually on the worst possible time. Mine chose headaches, vomit, and a face that I wouldn't drain properly. Yours might choose something else entirely. The point isn't the symptoms, the point is that there's always a bill. By early March, it started to quiet down, not all at once. Nothing about this was a clean line. But the headache visited less, my gut remembered the job, my face stopped swelling. I didn't do anything dramatic to make this happen. I just stopped being somewhere that required my body to keep arguing with my mouth. Every time I'd spoken to him while we were still together, I'd felt sick, repelled, like I wanted to throw up right there on the call. My body was saying no the entire time. My lips were saying yes. I was so practiced at performing that I overrode the no for yes. Turns out the body keeps a receipt, and it cashes it eventually, whether you got the documents signed or not. That is what masking's actually caused. Not just exhaustion, though God, it is exhausting. It costs you the ability to hear yourself until your body starts shouting, because whispering stopped working. There's a piece of this I almost left out because it sounded less like a tidy lesson and more like an actual diagnosis. Almost everyone is carrying some version of this. Anger in women, for instance, rarely gets to come out clean. Show it directly and you're emotional, hysterical, difficult. So instead it comes out as tears, as you can't always tell anymore whether you are sad or furious or both. For men, it runs the other direction. Anger read as confidence. Grief and shame do not. So you bear those so deep, you eventually stop recognizing them as yours, and you call it strength. Two different shadows, same resulting loneliness. The quiet certainty that you're the only one who feels that way, and that if anyone actually knew, they'd leave. I know that loneliness specifically because I'm autistic and spent years assuming I was the only one finding ordinary social situations this hard. They're interpreting everyone's tone 3 seconds too late. Hard. This is the joke of a real question hard. I wasn't the only one. I just never met my actually people yet. The one who don't need the performance because they're not running one either. A small necessary joke here. This is also conveniently the part of the episode where I tell you that none of this means everyone secretly has it as hard as you. Some people genuinely are fine. I have met them. They're very tan and they ask follow-up questions and I don't fully trust it, but I believe it. This isn't we all we call it broken speech. It's you're less alone in the specific feeling than the feeling itself tells you. Speech, different thing. When I was finally legal free, signing documents, pen in hand, I realized I could do whatever I wanted. I could make my own decisions about my time, my body, my company, my life. I felt relieved, tired, exhausted, but finally safe. The opposite of throwing up every time someone called. That moment wasn't loud. There was no parade. It was just, so this is what it feels like when your body and your mouth finally agree on something. Jung said it before any of us had startups or IKEA friends to learn it from the hard way. Loneliness does not come from having no people about one, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself. 100 years ago, you just didn't have to deal with 2-hour calls about meatballs. So when someone tells you the cure for loneliness is to go outside and make a friend, I understand the impulse. It's not wrong, exactly. It's just describing the symptoms and calling it loneliness. You can have a thriving social life and feel completely alone. I know because I did. For years, while doing everything right on paper. The real fix isn't more people, it's fewer of the wrong ones. And a great deal more of yourself. Solitude is not the same thing as loneliness. You can be entirely alone and be completely fine. Not everyone is your friend just because they call you one. And your friends, even the good ones, are not the answer to how you feel on the inside. That part is yours. Nobody else is coming to solve it. And the moment you actually start, everything else moves.